Welcome to the Four Visions Market podcast, a space built on the principles of integrity and reciprocity. Together, we will engage in thought-provoking conversations about plant medicines, why these plants are coming out of the rainforests, jungles, and mountains after thousands of years, and what it means to be in right relationship with the ancestral wisdom cultures and guardians of these traditions. I'm your host, Mariah Ganessa, founder and director of Four Visions Market. This podcast is the natural evolution in our commitment to providing you, our tribe, with incredible resources to support you on your healing journey through plant medicines. Welcome home. Welcome back, Four Visions family. Today on the show, we have Ruby Fremon, a transformational guide, combo practitioner, speaker, and author of Potent Leadership. She has helped thousands of leaders gain the courage to quit performing, uncover their potency, and lead their lives with integrity and intimacy. An expert on personal growth and deep inner work, Ruby is the host of the top-rated podcast, Potent Truth, and has appeared in over 100 publications and podcasts. She works with her clients one-on-one or in group settings at her live retreats and in her group offering, Potent Leaders. Known for her big heart, no bullshit approach, and shamanic gifts, Ruby's work bridges the gap between practicality and spirituality, offering leaders an opportunity to create true inner expression and optimized healing. Ruby sees herself as an advocate for humanity and uses her online presence to encourage her community to question the narrative and cultivate true sovereignty of mind, body, and spirit. In today's conversation, Ruby shares her journey of transformation and healing from addiction to a life of authenticity and truth. We talk about career pivots, being honest with ourselves through change and transformation, the power of courage and bravery when it comes to spiritual work and self-growth, as well as what true leadership is in today's world and why it's so needed. Thanks for tuning in, friends, and I hope you enjoy today's episode.
A quick word from our sponsors before we begin this episode.
This episode is brought to you by Magic Fund Amazon. Four Visions Market is proud to be in partnership with Magic Fund, a nonprofit organization that works as a movement for Amazonian growth and indigenous cultures. Magic Fund focuses primarily in the Putumayo region of the Colombian Amazon, spearheading various initiatives that focus on the preservation of indigenous culture, land, and the health of the traditional peoples that live there. Magic Fund recently launched a new campaign that is called Planting Magic. Through this initiative, we are currently fundraising to be able to steward 50 hectares of land in the Colombian Amazon in order to plant and reforest the land with native endangered medicinal plant species. We believe that these sacred plants, if conserved and protected, can bring forth healing for all of humanity in the generations to come. Like many places in the world, the Amazon is under constant threat of encroachment. 17% of the Amazon rainforest has been lost in the last 50 years. An increased interest in the healing benefits of these plants threatens their survival. As these ancestral plants continue to come out of the jungle to be shared with the West, the dire need to plant and replant these medicines becomes more and more apparent. So we invite you to join us in planting magic and leaving a legacy for the future generations so that these medicines continue to accompany humanity for many years to come. Visit Magic Fund Amazon to learn more and to join the movement. Well, welcome, Ruby. It's so lovely to meet you and really excited to get to have you on our show today and get to connect with you.
Yeah, Mariah, I am really humbled and honored to be here with you. And I love what you're creating with Four Visions. And I think that this is going to be a super fun and potent conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yay. Thank you so much for those words. And, part of this podcast and these conversations that we're having is to really highlight the healing benefits and the impact that plant medicine can have on people's journeys, and amplifying our personal medicines and our mission and service. And as I was preparing for my interview today with you, I really have gotten kind of a glimpse into how that's been the case for you. And so I think your story is one really inspiring and really one full of a lot of hope for anyone who may be, just beginning their journey or still stuck in ways of living that are not fully in alignment. And so I'm really looking forward to getting to drop in with you today and hear more about your story.
Yeah, thank you. Plant medicine has been such a beautiful and welcomed spirit in my life. And I feel like I'm just getting started, and yet it's been years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my teacher talks a lot about how it's not really about the amount of years on this physical plane that we're working with the medicine. If someone's really committed to their work, we can accomplish what it takes for some people 30, 40 years to do in one night of ceremony or in 1 year of study. So it's not really about the amount of time, but more about our commitment to showing up and doing the work. And so, yeah, with that, I would love to hear a little bit more about your journey and give you some space to introduce yourself to our listeners and our community. And yeah, go as deep into it all as you feel called to go. Loving to start at the beginning of where you really felt like enough was enough and you started looking for other solutions. And from there, whatever else you feel called to share with us.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the spaciousness too. My name is Ruby Fremon, and I'm a transformational guide for leaders. And I really like to position myself as someone who bridges the gap between spirituality and practicality for a lot of people. My journey into this space of growth and expansion really started in 2012 when I hit rock bottom, and I was an addict. And I had first become an addict through pharmaceuticals, which then evolved into recreational drugs and alcohol. And it was at that point in 2012 when I was at rock bottom that I realized that it was really a series of my choices that had led me there. And that if I truly wanted to experience something different, that I had the opportunity to create something different. I didn't know at that time what it was that I wanted. All I knew was what I didn't want. I knew that I didn't like how I was feeling. I knew that I was depressed and anxious, and I was tired of feeling that way. I didn't quite recognize my addiction at that time, but I embarked on a journey to get better, really, ultimately, to feel better in my body, to be in my body for the first time. And so that really began with fitness and nutrition, just starting to eat healthier, looking at food as nourishment, moving my body daily. That transformed into sobriety. And it was interesting because it was during my sobriety, when very early on, this is 2014, is when I actually became sober. That was when ayahuasca started showing up in my life. And I'd heard of her previous to that point, but not to this degree in depth. She was showing up in conversations. She was showing up in articles on my computer. She was showing up in messages. And at that time, because I was brand new in my sobriety, I was scared. And I thought to myself, well, I don't want to get hooked onto something else. Let me just go through the sobriety first. So my journey with sobriety in 2014 was all about learning how to feel my emotions for the first time in 30 something years. And that took me really to the depths of grief, of anger, of every emotion you can imagine. I went there, and I went there without knowing what would come from it. And what came from it was really this expansion from within of how much I could hold and how much I could be with, because I no longer had these vices and these addictions to mask. So my ability to hold more deepened, my ability to expand myself within the realm of my emotions and really feel the fullest expressions of my emotions. It became so vast that I realized then and there that this is how we build our resilience, right? It's not by running away. It's not by masking. It's not by hiding. It's by really being with it all. Mm-hmm. My journey with sobriety, at that time, I was working very early on in my personal development route as a coach. I was a certified life coach, NLP practitioner, working with clients in a very different way than I do now. But that really continued to support me into anchoring into my own growth and development. And then in 2017, I started noticing my body wasn't cooperating. My business exploded and I got really big really fast. I was working with a lot of clients. I was hosting 100-person 3-day events. It just exploded. And it was almost like my body's capacity to hold everything, it wasn't there. And I started to experience dis-ease in my body. And Western medicine at this point wasn't really part of my life. I was really on the holistic path for a while. And even my naturopath was like, there's just nothing, there's not much we can do for what you're experiencing. And so towards the end of 2018, I decided I needed to figure this out. I was determined. I knew that there was a way. That's when ayahuasca came back into my life and showed up in conversations, showed up in articles on my laptop, just started showing up. And I could feel her roots coming into me. And so I started asking around and I found a space to sit on US soil. And I sat, and I will say my first ceremony ever left me with a lot of trauma. It just wasn't, the space wasn't held very well. However, I remember to this day the moment that the cup met my lips, and tasting her was like taking me back into lifetimes of work that I've done with her. She was so familiar. And after that ceremony, I continued to sit probably every 2 months and just dive deeper. And I remember January 2019. This is like my second weekend sit with her. And she says to me in a ceremony that I'm going to be in Peru in November of that year. And I came out of that ceremony thinking, like, there's no way in hell I'm going to be in Peru. Like, I'm busy. I have all these clients. I'm not going to be able to take time off. I can't see that happening. Mind you, back then I was very type A perfectionist, just a very, very different person. Sure enough, I continued to sit with her on US soil in 2019. And in August, the opportunity for Peru came up. And the trip was for November. So I said to my friend who had presented this to me, I said, okay, well, this did come up in a vision. And if it's meant to be, it'll just be easy for me to shuffle things around. It was so easy. All my clients were super excited for me. The space was created. I left for Peru. This was a very huge experience for me for so many reasons. I had never really taken a solo trip like this before. I had never been to the jungle. I've been camping, but this is like next level camping. I didn't know who I was sitting with. I just said yes to something and went. And there I was, landed in Pucallpa. We took a 5-hour boat ride up the Ucayali River into a small village called Pauyan. And I met my maestro. And I feel like that was the beginning of a new life for me. I ended up doing a 14-day dieta. I was prescribed Bobinsana and Noyarao, and I sat with both. And it was a really, really tough 14 days, mostly because the environment was shocking enough. The maloca, the spiders the size of your hand, the peeing in the bucket by the side of the bed, the moldy mattress, all of it. All of it was just so much for my senses. And I remember trying to walk from the maloca to my tombo at night. And the night sky was so thick and dark that I couldn't see in front of me without my headlamp. And even that was scary. And that was when I feel like my internal matrix began to crumble for real. And I started to see things clearly for what they were. I started to realize that a big root of a lot of the things that I had been dealing with in terms of just the type A, go-getting, like hardworking, pushing myself constantly, that really stemmed from this lack of self-trust. And the plants were teaching me to trust myself and to trust this work. And so that dieta really opened me up to the Shipibo way, which is now the only way that I'll sit with grandmother. I have such deep reverence. It felt like familiar territory to me when I first heard the Icaros, when I first sat in pure darkness. There was just something so familiar. And I don't think there's no ceremony that I had done before compared to sitting in the dark and really being with yourself and doing the work. I found that this was the most profound work that I had ever done. And so after that, I just continued to sit in the Shipibo way on US soil and going back to the jungle for more diets. And I've said this in a recent podcast episode that December 2018, when I first sat with ayahuasca, was the beginning of my season with death. And that season of death didn't really end until right about now. So it's been like this 4-year season where the plants have helped me shed so much and helped me realize what's really true from within and to lead from that place. And so it's been a long, hard journey. I think a lot of people talk about this journey with plants with a lot of enlightenment and love and excitement. And for me, it was really hard. It was a lot of being in the roots. It was a lot of digging and excavating things that I didn't want to see. It was a lot to come face to face with. And now to be on, I wouldn't say the other side, but I'm like in the final stages of grief with the death cycle and entering this rebirth, that I can say with full certainty I'm a completely different person because of this work. And by different, I mean more me than ever before. So I'm really, really grateful for this work. I'm grateful for the way I've been able to weave it into the work that I do with leaders now. I'm grateful that Kambo also came into my path, and Kambo came onto my path through ayahuasca. Ayahuasca told me to sit with Kambo, and all of which has helped me heal from multiple things that Western medicine and even Eastern medicine here said I couldn't heal. So I'm a firm believer in plant medicine and the sacred medicines that the jungle has to provide. I'm a firm believer in that we can heal anything and everything. And I'm a firm believer in treating this path with absolute reverence, because it is one that I feel is abused a lot, it's misunderstood. But when you go onto this path with reverence, you're able to see the things that you need to see versus seeing the things that you want to see. And there is a big difference.
Very beautiful. So special to get to hear a little bit more about your journey, and really just want to commend you, for the work that you're doing. And as you said, it's not easy, and it takes a certain level of courage, of valiancy to be willing to go to the depths of our shadows and, work with these different tools and different avenues for being able to strip away all of the illusion and really get to the truth of who we are, and do that work. And so these master plants, like you said, they have a really high frequency. They sustain all of nature with the wisdom that they contain and the magic that they contain. And so one of the best ways that we can give reverence to these plants and to these ancestral lineages is by doing the work and the transformation. And just like you were talking about, it's one thing to just drink the medicine, but then what comes afterwards and the way that we bring it through into our daily life, through the changes that we choose to make and the way that we choose to offer ourselves into the world, that's a whole nother work. And it's really, equally as important, as well as part of bringing reverence to the plants and bringing reverence to this work. And so you've been on this journey of doing it, and it's a long journey once we get started with these plants, and once you get started with the spiritual work, and I know that you've been in this process of the evolution of your own offerings to the world since I think you said 2014. And it's beautiful because as we go evolving and growing and gaining greater spiritual capacity, our work grows and evolves, and to be able to not be attached to the rigidness of our own persona or what we've given out into the world as our offering, to be able to flow with that also takes a lot of courage. And I think that that's something that you're doing really beautifully and humbly. And it's something I wanted to talk to you more about. And so I think with that, let's go into that a little bit more about like the rebirth that you've been experiencing, because this is something that was very, very common on the spiritual path, right? The more that we get to know ourselves, the more we get to uncover layers of ourselves that we didn't even know existed before. And our whole perception of reality changes when we start to get to know ourselves on these deeper levels. Who we know ourselves to be changes, our work and what we're here to do. The lens shifts, and there's greater clarity, there's greater authenticity and potency. So and that also was one thing really resonated with your sharing, because your journey from sobriety is like this beautiful metaphor for this process that we all in today's world of numbing out, and being asleep to our the truth of our heart, to our emotional body, to our bodies in general. And so whether we've struggled with addiction of substance, most of us in society are addicted to this pattern of not feeling and not showing up in divine presence, and this cycle of not living, not truly living. So, this path that you've been on over the last years has been a really beautiful journey, I'm sure, of coming back into greater truth and greater authenticity, and has most likely required that you get really honest with yourself at different points along your journey of what does need to change, and what no longer is true, right? So I would love for you to share with us a little bit more about how that's been for you, and perhaps also, just a little bit about the fear and anxiety that comes up with that, because it's very normal to have so much attachment. Yeah, these constructs that we built for ourselves, whether it be in who we say we are to the world or in our offerings and our work. And it takes a tremendous amount of bravery to be willing to shift those things, and make a change and be vulnerable in that way. And so I would love to hear you speak a little bit more about that and how that's been for you.
Yeah, thank you for those reflections. I really appreciate that. And yeah, it takes a lot of courage and bravery to acknowledge what is no longer aligned and really step into what is, which is evolution itself. For me, the first taste of that was pretty early on in my career as a coach. I had started out as a self-love coach. So I only worked with women, and I worked with women on self-love. And I grew a name and an identity for myself fairly quickly. And by that, I mean the external perceived identity. So I had grown a Facebook group organically to 5,000 members within a few months. I was on the first page of Google search ranks for self-love coach. I was hosting workshops at Wanderlust. I was on, I had articles in a lot of different platforms that were going viral. And at one point, I remember thinking to myself, this just doesn't feel good anymore. Something doesn't feel good about this. And I had been also doing so much deep work. So as I've been working in this coaching industry, I've also been extremely devoted to my own personal expansion and growth. And I noticed that it was feeling like I'd grown away from something, almost like a relationship. Like when you grow out of a friendship, that's what it felt like. And I pushed through it a little bit, but then I thought to myself, am I actually really being of service to the people that I am serving right now? While I am like debating, having this internal dialogue of, is this in alignment or is this not? And then I also thought about all of these things that I had built, these external things like the brand and the Facebook group and the programs and the external identity and what people perceived me as, and how much work went into that. And I thought to myself, well, but if I keep this up, it just feels like a performance. Mm-hmm. And that is not in service to anyone. So I decided to walk away from that. And I made an announcement in the Facebook group, and I closed out the Facebook group, which that in itself was like, it felt gut wrenching, but at the same time, so freeing. And went through a complete brand overhaul, decided to just follow what felt right in the moment. And that really set the tone for me, or the path for my entire journey in this work. Ever since then, I have not been afraid to evolve. In fact, I've embraced it. We talk about our own personal evolution so much, and yet in the business world, entrepreneurs are taught to pick a niche, stick to it, and that's what you do, which is basically just putting yourself in a box for the rest of your life. And that's not how we're meant to live. We are organic beings. Everything in our world evolves. Everything. We look around us, nature is constantly evolving. We are meant to evolve. And even when we are not consciously evolving, we are evolving. Mm-hmm. We have the innate evolution of just like our physical bodies and the biological evolution, the chemistry, all of that is evolving. And then we put the conscious evolution into play, which is the work that we choose to do. And all of a sudden, you start to value different things, find meaning in different things. So why would you not take that and integrate it into the work that you do? So that became the very foundation of the way that I work, and the way that I work with clients too, is just to help people see past that external matrix and dig into that internal matrix to really uncover their truth, and also know that their truth can evolve, and that's okay. So I have definitely evolved my business and the way that I work with the clients many times. However, it's been a journey of evolution. It's never been from this one thing to a completely different thing. It's been like a deepening of my gifts and a deepening of my servitude and an expansion of the way in which I work. But it's always been in the greater, by keeping the highest good in mind, the greater service for humanity, the greater service for me and how I operate. Because if I am working out of alignment, then that doesn't serve the people that I'm here to serve.
Very beautifully said. I love it. And yeah, it's just the truth. You know, we got to be authentic, and it's hard. It's hard to be authentic in today's world, and with everything that you know, we've bought into. And I love that response. It's spot on. So if you would just narrow it down, like a message that you might have for someone who is wanting to do this but feeling fear, what would you say to them?
Step into what feels most aligned. You know, people talk about, I think there's like that corny saying, like, follow the spark. But it's like, follow what feels right for you, not for others, and not what other people think you should do. Follow what feels right for you.
Mm. So what is potent leadership? Talk to us a little bit about this work that you're stepping into. You just released your book, and this is kind of like the current phase of your offering as it's evolved. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah. Something that became very apparent to me as I was working in the personal development leadership space was the amount of people performing. Of course, with social technology, you know, Instagram, Facebook, all the social media platforms, our addiction to our devices, this has created just a collective of people who are addicted to how they're being perceived. But then you can also control how you're being perceived now with just a few buttons or just a quick update to your IG bio or caption. And so with that, it's almost like we've lost all sight and touch of who we truly are. And I started to notice that in the space. I would meet people who I knew from the online world, and I'd meet them in person, and they were completely different. And the dissonance really bothered me because I felt like almost duped. Like, okay, I thought I knew you, and I actually don't know you at all. And that got me to become more curious about, I wonder why people are operating in this way. And of course, I had been on my journey to my truth and my authenticity for so long that I just remembered that that's all it is people lose sight and lose touch with who they are because they believe that they have to be a certain way to be loved, to be liked, to be accepted. These are our human innate needs, and we all have these needs. It's a sense of belonging. And if we root that down just into the tribal ways, like we are tribal creatures, and we live best in tribe, which means that we want to be in community. We want to be liked. We want to feel like we belong. And in this very judgmental, messed up world where people are constantly projecting their traumas and their beliefs onto each other, we've lost sight of the truth, of our truth. And I really felt this deep calling to help these people come back to their truth. And I also felt that there was a lot of myths in the entrepreneurial space about like what makes you unique. What is this thing that makes you stand out? The business coaches will often ask their clients that. It's like, well, what is the thing that makes you stand out? What makes you unique? And they want you to pick one thing. And it really bothered me because it's not one thing. It's the alchemy. It's the totality of all that you are. And that is what potency is. Your potency is it's your gifts, it's your personality, it's your values, it's your beliefs, it's your experiences, your stories, it's your presence, your energetic frequency. It's everything. That is the medicine that you have to offer yourself in the world. And when you start to perform, pretend to be something that you're not, overly edit yourself due to fear of being judged or disliked, you start to dilute your potency. So the idea of potent leadership is by leading your life, leading your dharma, leading your vision as your most potent self. So from your medicine, your way, creating your own path. And that is easier said than done because it's really a journey first of disentangling from all that you thought you were to uncover who you truly are. And then building around that versus like trying to fit your life according to your business. You're going to build your vision and your business around your truth. That is how we remain in alignment. So that is the idea of potent leadership. And I just felt like this was too important to, especially now with our world being what it is, so divided, it's created almost like this. I don't know if you felt this, but it almost feels like a lot of people are scrambling right now, scrambling for truth, scrambling for anything that makes them feel safe. A lot of people have heightened the performance because they're scared. And that's why this work is that much more important now, is because we actually need more leaders to step up, but leaders who are really willing to lead from a place of truth and not from a place of performance.
It's amazing. I love it. And so needed, especially in the coaching space, because as you're saying, that space can be really superficial and it's not really having great impact. And so when we come at it from this place, and I really, when I hear you talk about potent leadership, I just feel like authenticity and connecting with our own personal medicine and empowering ourselves to be able to offer them to the world. And so the fact that you are wanting to bring that forward and this is what you're choosing to devote your work to is really, it's so beautiful and so inspiring. And we do need more of that. We need more leaders. We need more people like you who are stepping into their mission and their work and supporting more people to do the same. And if we really think about what can happen in terms of the shifts in our society, in our universal mindset in the next 10, 20, 30 years if more people start stepping into this place. It's beautiful. You know, we return to a vision for true healing and return home for all of humanity. And I think I was listening to a conversation you had where you really said that everyone is a leader. And I really resonate with that, because we all have medicine to give to the world. We all have gifts to step into, you know? And so it's like, to be at the forefront of this work, it's really so beautiful, because to be able to support more people in stepping into that, and just be in service in that way, it really holds that prayer for all of us to activate our purest potential and to make that impact, and be a force for true change, you know, not just that superficial impact or claims of growth, you know. And so yeah, I really admire the work that you're doing, and you know, send you many blessings for it, because it will continue growing, just simply with the fact that you're putting your true heart into it, you know, and to keep going from that place, and keep listening, and leading and stepping in to that place of greater and greater truth and alignment. And we make so much greater impact when you do it that way, you know, and it's also so much more exciting. Life gets so much more exciting. And if we really like talk about this, like how to really be alive today, it's so many of us are living so asleep, and we're living so on autopilot. And so to really choose to do something new, choose to step out of the comforts of our conditioning and what we're safe in, and it's what we need to break everything up and break the illusion of all the stories we've been believing for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. It's, you know, the illusions in our external world begin in our internal world. And if we look at it that way, the illusions in our external world are really just the projections from every single person on this planet. So if we actually all just devoted ourselves to doing that work, to come back to that place of healing, to be devoted to this path, then imagine what would be possible within humanity and within our collective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's happening, you know. It's exciting. And you know, you spoke a little bit about how you navigate the social media space, because it is an incredible tool, right? And I think it's important to also talk about people who are doing what you're doing, navigating the plant medicine world as well as the, you know, real world and the world that we come from, our modern day society. It's important. We're bridges, right? And so it's important to have people like that, because you know, not everyone can live in the jungle all the time, or you know, there
I
has to
wish.
be even with those spiders.
Yes, I would definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, me too. I love it. I love being close to nature. But for a lot of people, that's a big step, right? And there needs to be that transition. There needs to have like someone hold their hand and make it tangible, you know, because it's really easy when we first hear about people who are going on this big spiritual path, whether it be in plant medicine or another healing path, right? That it can be a little intimidating. And so, you know, I think people in like you who are making that more accessible, who are openly talking about it too, and not afraid of sharing your story and sharing your direct experience with these life-changing things, are really making it really so much more accessible to people and so much more digestible to people. And so I'm curious for you, you know, with the amount of eyes that you have on you with your platform that you've built, was there ever a moment of, you know, hesitation to being so open about your work with plants, or simply just your personal healing work, you know, because I think also there's this expectation of like coaches being healed, right? And that's also just, it's a false reality and not really ever true. So to also be in that place of leadership, was there ever any hesitation about really, you know, being vulnerable with your story as well as, you know, your work with the plants, and how did that evolve to be where you're at today, where you're sharing openly about it and really choosing to step into this place of advocacy and bridge work?
Yeah, what's interesting is that this entire path to the work that I do started with an anonymous Tumblr account. For anyone who remembers Tumblr, Tumblr was like a micro blogging platform where you could share microblogs as well as long form content, images, whatever. When I hit rock bottom in 2012, I wanted to find a way to hold myself accountable to this journey. But I didn't want to do it publicly because I, at that point, was a very public figure, but in the concert, nightlife, production space. So I didn't want anyone to know what I was going through. So I had an anonymous Tumblr account where I would really just write about my feelings, and I would create quotes and call them Rubyisms that summed up how I was feeling. And one day I shared something super vulnerable, and I can't remember what it was, but it was about my journey with addiction. And I took that post from Tumblr, my anonymous account, and I posted it onto Facebook, where I had 5,000 people at that time following me for different reasons, because I worked in nightlife. And I remember hitting post and I felt like I was going to throw up. And then after that, I started getting all these DMs from people, and the DMs were ranged from, world-renowned producers, DJs that were messaging me that I've worked with that said, "Oh my God, I'm feeling the same." People I didn't know that said, like, "I commend you for sharing this." Other people, friends saying, "Wow, I didn't know you were going through this." Like, all of a sudden, it was like the connection that I had so desired my entire life and I didn't know I desired. It was right here in the vulnerability. That really spun me into the space of coaching, and where I decided to become a coach and get educated on that, but also helped me carve out this new path of like, well, okay, well, my entire life I wasn't allowed to show up vulnerably because I would be punished. But now it's serving me. It's getting me what I deeply crave, and that's connection. And so back then is when I started sharing with vulnerability. And I would say raw vulnerability to what I was able to do in that moment. You know, I think that authenticity, vulnerability, all of these things are like muscles that we just continue to work, and we become better and better at it. So over the years, I've definitely become more transparent. And so when it came to plant medicine, I mean, I don't believe I shared about my very first ceremony, but it was a few months afterwards when I started sharing, and not as transparently as I do now, but it felt natural and organic for me to do so, because at that point I had already built my entire brand on truth, but I had also cultivated this way of being that was to be in vulnerability, to share transparently, because this is how we help each other. This is how we recognize the human in each other, right? It is when we can show up real, and then that real turns into relatability, and people can start to relate to us. And when it comes to the plants, I think that there's a lot that I can unpack here with how it's being shared online. I think there are people who share it from a place of ego, and we see a lot of that in the online space of like, oh, I sat with ayahuasca once and this happened. And it's like the over glamorization of the plant medicines, which kind of skews people's intentions for wanting to sit. Whereas I really just wanted to bring truth and reverence back to the experience. And people would talk about, oh, I had this beautiful like visual and epiphany. And I'm like, really? Because I think I got my ass kicked in that last ceremony. And I wanted to talk about that because like not everyone has the fireworks. Like a lot of people go through some deep, deep trauma in these sits. And so I just wanted to speak to it from this place of my truth. Because I knew that if I was having these experiences, then there are other people who are too. And I don't want them to think that they're going crazy because they're not having the same experiences in sits. Because I would see that. I would see people in integration circles saying, well, I'm mad because I didn't get that experience. And this is what happened. Like, well, why don't we just start talking about what the experience is like? Why don't we start talking about these plants as our teachers? Why don't we start talking about this way of being with reverence and respect and humility? Because that's what's needed, not ego. So for me, it just felt really natural. Have I hesitated? I would be lying if I didn't, mostly just with family. But then I wrote a book and it's in the book, and I gave it to my family members and I was like, here it is. This is what I do. And I talk in great detail in the book about this world. And so it's out there, but this is my truth and this is my story and this is my journey. And if it can help someone or inspire someone to hear it or illuminate something in someone, then so it is.
Yeah, I think it's the natural next step when we receive so much from these plants to want to support other people having these same healing experiences. So it's beautiful. And yeah, so this concept of integration, it's kind of funny because if you go back to the traditional use of these plants within the ancestral communities and tribes, they did not have integration. There was no
they don't even have
integration.
consultation. I mean, their form of consultation is, I can see in you, and this is what the plant you're going to be dieting, and that was it, and no explanation.
Yeah, and the people, when they were working with these medicines within their tribal communities, there was no need for integration because it's a way of life, right? It's already so integrated into their way of communing with nature, their way of communicating with one another, their way of handling conflict, their way of looking for counsel. It is the pillar for these communities and these tribes to work with these master plants. So when we take the medicine out of the jungle and we bring it to a new place with people who don't have that connection with nature on a daily basis, they haven't had any understanding or access point for orienting around truth and around, listening and tuning in to themselves, there is this gap, right? And so that's where like this concept of integration really comes forth and comes to the forefront of the conversation regarding the use of these plants. So, it's a really big conversation, and I love to talk about this concept of integration with people who have had different experiences, right? Because there's such a wide range of different experiences with the plants, and really so many different ways of working with them pre, during, and post. And I would love to, hear a little bit from you. I know that you did have some experiences that were not so good and kind of brought you to a place of knowing what you did need to integrate. And you're also in this place of supporting others to come to the medicine. So I'm sure that also means that you have loved ones in your community that you have supported post experience as well, and so obviously I know that you don't run integration programs, but you do offer coaching for people who want to go deeper in their spiritual path and their spiritual work. And that can sometimes be a form of the toolbox that one works with, post integration. So question one, I guess, would be, what have you learned to carry you through these transformational processes? What skills have you developed, and what tools have you called upon to develop your toolbox to integrate and really bring these lessons into reality, into action, right? Because that's like why we're working with these medicines, not just to have those beautiful visions or that the beautiful colors and pintas, but to actually be able to take that into our daily life and make it into transformative action for lasting and sustainable change. So that's the first part. And I guess the second part would be, what do you see as necessary elements to being able to do that? What are the key parts to having success in making the sustainable, lasting change happen?
Yeah, great questions. Integration. I always tell clients that the ceremony doesn't end in the maloka. Integration is actually a big part of it. And for me, some may not call this a skill, but spaciousness, creating spaciousness, the ability to create spaciousness. Again, as someone who never created space in her life before, felt deeply uncomfortable in space, felt deeply uncomfortable being. The ability to carve out spaciousness in my life was so, so important when I stepped into this work. And I didn't realize how important. It took me a few ceremonies to realize how important that would be. And I started carving out more space and more space and more space. And then the skill, the art of being, really prioritizing the being versus the doing. And I feel like I have the jungle to thank for that, because in the jungle, you have nothing to do and everything to be, So really bringing that into my life here outside of the jungle That in itself, the spaciousness and the art of being, helped me connect so many dots in my integration. It continues to help me connect so many dots, even just in the integration of life itself. Mm-hmm. And I have slowly, yet surely, learned the importance of carving out this space on a daily basis, the importance of being on a daily basis, of being in different ways, of being between client sessions, rather than rushing from one thing to another, of being with myself in the morning, of being with myself in the evening, of being at intermittent times throughout the day, so that I could reconnect to myself. And I feel like the plants taught me that, because in ceremony, that's where I really feel so connected to myself in the plant world. And yet in life, we can lose touch with that. So for me, those were the biggest skills, I guess, I learned from this space that I've put into practice, that have really opened my eyes to what is possible through being, through stillness, through taking pauses, through embracing spaciousness. And I think that in our world, society wants us to believe that the doing is where all the rewards are. In fact, that's how our entire society is built, right? Mm-hmm. Even the school, the educational system, you graduate kindergarten, you go to grade 1, grade 2, then you get your diploma, then you go to the thing, and then you get this certificate or whatever it is. And you put in a lot of hours at work, you'll get a raise. It's caked into our society. And we struggle with being for that reason, but also for the reason that we're not accustomed to sitting with our feelings, to being in our shadows. And that's what happens when you're in stillness. That's what happens when you're choosing to be with the full expression of your emotions rather than to mask, right? Mm-hmm. So that's something that I work with all of my clients, whether they're in my group programs or one-on-one. But that's really, really important. Otherwise, there's no way you'll ever be able to hear yourself or understand or know your truth, because you're constantly moving from one thing to the next, constantly performing. Mm. What are you performing for? You're not going to find that answer through more performance. You're going to find that answer through being with it, being with that question. Grief, rage, all of these emotions, people have rage ceremonies, and yes, it's healthy. It's one thing to express your rage, but have you chosen to be with it for a minute? Can you be with that and just feel it in your entire body? Can you be with the grief? Because expressing your grief isn't going to make the grief go away, right? Mm. It's like being with it. That is where you can uncover so much about yourself. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of beauty in that. There's a lot that unfolds when you choose to be with life and be with yourself.
Yes. I feel like the being is also it's the embracing, right? And not trying to run away or make it different or transform it, just allowing ourselves to literally hug these parts of ourselves and make peace with them. And as soon as we do that, it really does just dissipate and settle, and that's when it transforms. But the more that we resist, the more those parts of ourselves just continue to stick around, Yeah. So it's really, really wonderfully articulated. And I really just want to thank you and wish you many blessings on the work that you're doing, because it's the spiritual path is a long one, and once we really start to commit to it, it's like I'm peeling back the layers of the onion. It just keeps unfolding deeper and deeper for when we're truly walking it, right? Not just pretending to walk or performing, like you said. And so, you're in this beautiful journey of stepping more and more into your medicine, your work, your legacy for the world, and you're doing it with such courage and transparency, and it's really beautiful and refreshing. And so I want to send you many blessings on this path that you're walking, and that it continue to flourish and be one of a lot of beauty and color and sweetness, and that it continues to just get better and better, as it does when we really commit to this life of living life to its fullest with all of it, giving its value, its true value of this beautiful, precious life and existence. So thank you so much for being with us today, for sharing your medicine with us, your story, and your insights and understandings that you've received throughout your journey. And I just want to open up the space if you have any other last thoughts or anything else that you want to share with those listening. We're definitely going to be putting, links to your platform, your book in our show notes. So anyone who's tuning in, definitely check out Ruby's other offerings, and if you feel called to work with her and learn more about the work that she's doing. But I just want to open it up for you to close and share anything else that's on your heart or mind.
Thank you so much. Yeah, to everyone listening, just know that you're here to evolve. I refuse to hold yourself static in one place. That's not how our world works. That's not how nature works. We're here to evolve. We're here to grow. We're here to deepen our roots and expand our branches. So to really just allow yourself to evolve in the way that feels most aligned with you.
Thank you so much, Ruby.
Thank you so much for having me. Such an honor.
God bless you, my sister. All the best on your path.
Thank you.
From everyone at the Four Visions Market family, we would like to thank you for listening to our podcast. We really hope that you've enjoyed the conversation and gained many new insights on plant medicines, ancestral wisdom, and much more. Please remember to visit our website at www.fourvisionsmarket.com for more resources and information on plant medicine and spiritual tools. And please don't forget to follow us across social media for regular updates on upcoming episodes. We are grateful for your support and look forward to continuing this path with you all. Until next time, take care, stay present, and stay connected.